Hello everyone. So this week's data number 6. So this week, I like to take a look at the US government's military spending data. Because last week, we took a look at the interest payment that has been skyrocketing. This week, I like to bring in the military spending data because US government's military spending is very well known that has been increasing over the last 20 years or so. How about comparing the interest payment against military spending? So let's take a look. Okay, so here's a Wikipedia's military budget for the United States page. And I like the Wikipedia because it's actually kind of like a treasure trove of data. Number one, there are tables in the Wikipedia page someone actually created. So that data itself is very useful. So for example, when you scroll down all the way here, and there's this table that actually lists up all the defense budget year by year. Okay, so by using exploratory, you can actually web scrape this data and bring it in, and that's fine as well. But there's one thing though, there is a notation around that table, and that tells you where this data is actually coming from. Okay, so Wikipedia is like, like you might say, like, hey, anybody can edit, how you can trust that, right? Most of the time, like when it comes to data, pretty much sure, but at the same time, it's always good practice to go to the source of the data. So if I click on this one, and this opens this government website, and then budget FY 2024, something about like a US government's budget data, right? And it seems like it's from like 1976 to all the way to 2028. I'm sure like beyond 2024 is sort of like an estimate. And then there's a link for the XLSX, that means Excel file. If I click on it, I can download that data. But however, this time though, I already downloaded that data. So I'm going to just use that and then import that Excel file into the exploratory and then combine with this interest payment data. If you don't know about this interest payment data, I have done that in last week, this week's data number 5. I'm going to put that link to that video in the comment section as well. Okay, so here's the data. Last week we were looking at like, hey, interest payment is skyrocketing, and then kind of freaky chart. But nonetheless, I want to actually bring in the military budget spending data here, right? So to do, basically, like I'm going to use a join with another data frame. But first thing first, I got to bring that data into the exploratory, right? So if I go to the download folder, and this is the Excel file, and then I open this Excel file here already. So this one is actually like each year presented in the column. So like now after import, like I have to do some kind of transformation here. The important thing is line by line, like we can see like how many, how much of the dollar has been spent for each item. But what I want to do is what we need is a defense, national, for example, defense, total of the national defense. I'm not interested in this time that what's the procurement, what's the construction, that kind of stuff. I want this row, the total national defense. And the same thing for other stuff, for example, like energy, there's a total energy row, and the other doesn't really matter for this particular analysis. Okay, so after like I import this data, I'm going to just keep only the some rows that start with this total comma. Okay, and that's basically the sort of like a summarized level of data so that we can see the trend of like each category, how they have been increasing or decreasing by the category. Okay, so that's what I want to do. So here, so now I'm going to bring this data, budget 2024 tab, by drag and drop, and then it will show me the preview data. And then one thing notice though, like going back to the Excel file, the first 2 rows are not necessary rows, right? Those kind of like a title-ish kind of thing. So I want to import the stuff from the 3rd row. So how are we going to do that? Well, here, the skip first end rows. So here, I'm going to say like skip the first 2 rows and click apply. And then now that column name seems to be okay, 1976, 1977, and so on. Okay, so it looks okay. So I'm going to just click on import government budget 2024. Okay, so now that we have that data frame right here, and then go to the table view. Okay, so now here's a data similar to what we saw in Excel. So there's a first problem is that, like, you remember, like, we want to keep only the rows that start with total. For example, here, total national defense. We want to keep this row. We want to remove other rows, sort of like detail level of the rows. If we are interested in only the defense data, then that's it. That, we can keep only that one particular row. But this time, like, I like to actually visualize all the categories, how they're increasing, and see like what the national defense against other items or categories, right? For example, other stuff like international affairs, I want to keep this rows starts with total, comma. Energy, same thing, the start with total, comma. Okay, so keep that in mind. Then, like, we can use a filter, and then there is a start with operator. Let's use that. And then here, I'm going to just say total, and probably this is okay, but I'm going to just add a comma as well and a space maybe. And then I can click on round bottom. And then now, nicely, like all the rows that start with total being kept in this data. And then, like, we don't really need this total thing, right? Like, I want to get rid of that. So to do, there's something called work with text data. And then from here, we can use a remove operation and then remove maybe the text here. Okay, so this is a text data wrangling UI. And then what we can do is here, so total, comma, I'm going to remove this one. So this one is just a total, but if you want to even more restrict way to match that text, you can use the beginning. Like in this case, it doesn't really matter because there's only one total in all the values. And then I'm going to click on the preview, and it seems like, looks like, okay, this is before, this is after. So I'm going to just click round bottom. And then, okay, so that all the names being cleaned up. Next challenge is that, like, each year is presented as an independent column. Instead, I like to have those to be presented in one single column that have the year, like in 1976, 1977, so on. And that's actually the kind of data format that you want to have so that you can easily create the chart. So if you click on that 1976, and then I'm going to, before that, like, I don't really need this 2024-25 items. So I'm going to get rid of that. Okay, so let's get rid of this and select remove columns. And then I'm going to say, hey, remove. And then also all the way to 2028. Okay, so we don't need these columns. I want the information up to 2023. Okay, I'm going to just click on this one too. We don't need that because it's enough to have 1976 and then 77 and 78 and so on. Okay, so click on round bottom. And then we have that. And then, like, I don't like this name 2023 estimate, even though that's actually the estimate rather than the actual budget for the 2022. But I like to use it as sort of like the same way as the 2022 for this particular analysis. So I'm going to change the column name. But it's important to keep in mind that this is actually the estimate. Okay, so now here we have all the columns created. There's one thing though, you notice that, like, some of the columns data types are numeric, some of the column data type is character. And why this is happening? I think that's because before the filtering, all the rows, I think some rows had some characters somewhere. I think something, here you go. So some data had a dot kind of characters. So those data columns are recognized as a character. When you don't have something like that, it automatically registered as numeric. Okay, so that's happening. So like now, before the next operation, like I like to get all the data type to be consistent. These are obviously all numeric, right? So what we can do is one thing here is I'm going to select all the columns. Okay, these are the columns I like to reevaluate what the appropriate data type is. So you can do it from here, right-hand side top, add stop, and then under the other, and there's something called reevaluate data types and all for all columns. This is actually pretty cool because all you need to do is just click on round bottom and then reevaluate. and then register the appropriate data type. You can do one by one. For example, like if you're for sure, like you want to, hey, I want to do from character to numeric, then instead you can select, for example, multiple columns, and then go here to change data type. And then from here, you can select whatever the data type that you want to convert to, either way. Okay, so now what I want to do is I'm going to transfer this wide data. This type of data is called wide data. Every new sort of like value to be presented as a new column. So that's why data I want to bring into long data. So like I'm going to select all the columns from 1976 to 2023. And it doesn't matter which column, but from the column header menu, there's something called wide to long. And then I'm going to use selected range this time, because this is just a range beginning and ending. And then key columns, I'm going to say this is the year. And then just click on here. This section is basically selecting what is the range of the target data we are talking about. And then from once I click run button, it's going to transform from wide data to long data. Let's take a look here. Click on run button. So this is what I mean by long data. Now that we have the year column, that's the column that hold all the year information. And then the value column used to be spread out all the columns as value, in this case, the budget dollars. But now it's presented in one single column. So we have a year and the value, and then those two columns hold the same information, used to be held in the 55 or 54 columns. Okay, so now we have 864 rows as a result of that, but this actually the perfect data format to create a chart. But before that, these numbers is actually, we have to be careful, because this is $1 million. That's the unit. Okay, so I want to actually convert this to just regular dollars, so that like when anybody see the numbers, people can understand like what this number really mean. So I'm going to just select the create calculation standard, and then multiply. This is 1,000, and then another 30 to make it 1 million. So I'm multiplying $1 million because this is like a presented $1 million unit, and I don't care about the original value. So like I'm going to overwrite that. So there you go. So for example, 1976, that's actually $97,331,000,000. That's the actual defense budget in 76. Okay, so looks okay. So now like what I want to do here is like a function and a sub-function column. If I click on that information icon, we have 18 unique values. That means 18 categories in this budget data. Okay, so let's go to the chart and visualize how those categories being changing. So let's use a line chart for this one. And then I'm going to use, year is character data type. That's actually, it's not going to be sorted on the x-axis nicely. So I'm going to change this value to change the data type to numeric, and click run. So now that we have the year column to be numeric too. Okay, so to go to the chart, and then this is actually good practice. So because of this pin icon is now pinned to the create calculation, but not the converting numeric data type. I want that numeric data type to show up here, because right now still the character. You see A as icon. So I'm going to move this pin to the last step. Now this chart is referencing to the most recent data transform data. So x-axis, I'm going to select the year, and y-axis, the value. This is the overall budget. I want to actually separate this line to each category. So by using a color, there you go. So here's each category's budget, sort of a trend. And this is kind of crazy up and down here. So for example, this one is the income security. I think this is something to do with COVID, and then probably like unemployment payment from the government or something like that. Is actually kind of skyrocketing, but this is sort of like an outlier event. I can see another thing here is the commerce and housing credit, maybe like something to do with housing. But out of this, it's kind of hard to notice here, but this is a national defense. Okay, so national defense is most of the time is actually top, and then Now, after this year, somehow something else actually went up. This is like a social security. And this is actually also another well-known thing. The US government's spending is being out of that. The social security is actually skyrocketing because more people have longer years of life. So this is also getting kind of like out of control. And then this is military spending here. That's also steadily increasing. So now, I like to bring this data, you remember, this data into the interest payment data. Hey, wait a second, you have the interest payment data here, net interest, and what's wrong with that? Like now you can compare here. So like, for example, net interest and the national defense, and then, hey, boom, you already compared, that's it. Well, here's the one thing. So this data is 2023. You remember, this is actually the estimate. Estimated in maybe the previous year or beginning of the year, whatever. But actually the interest payment is skyrocketing. And then the data we saw last week, that was actually the latest of the Q2 of this year. So that's actually presenting, sort of reflecting the current state of the interest payment. So I like to compare that against this defense budget. I'm going to bring this data into the interest payment data. To do what I want to do is that I don't need other items, other category like social security and so on this time. So I'm going to just select only the national defense before I join this data into the interest payment data. So use the filter, national defense. There you go. Boom. So we have only 48 rows now, and then this column includes only national defense. Okay, and then let's go to the interest payment data. Okay, and in this data, I have already summarized to the year level. Originally, it was a quarter level, but I just summarized at the year level. And then like all I need to do is just bring the this budget data. Okay, so any column is fine, but I'm going to use this date column and then join, and then select the target data frame, which is this government budget 2024. And then which column I want to use. Oh, I can't select it. Why? Because you remember that budget data had the year level data, not like months or day. But this particular data frame has date data type and then year, months, day. Okay, and so that's one problem because it's very strict in terms of data type, and it doesn't know like which row to join together. So I'm going to go close cancel here, and then before do the join here, this is a target. This one the year. So I'm going to create the year column to this interest payment data frame so that we can use those columns to match between two data frames. So it's actually pretty simple. Like there's an extract menu and then extract the year out of this date. And then what I can do is I'm going to just keep this column name as a default. And then here, so we have the date year column, a numeric data type. Perfect. And then from here, I can do the join. And then select the same thing. This is government budget 2024. And then here, target is a year column. And then like, I'm going to just click on the preview. If some of the rows, we don't have value from the target data because the target data frame, the budget data frame starts with 1976, while this data starts with 1947. So up to 1976, probably we don't have that data, the data, but after that, we have the data. So that's perfect. So click on the round bottom. So here we have the budget, defense budget data starting from 1976. Okay, so we have the data that we can visualize them together. But before that, I'm going to change this column name so that nobody get confused. Rename. And then this one is a defense budget. Okay, there you go. So now we have an interest payment column and defense budget column. And both of them, the unit are $1 billion. So it looks good. So let's go to chart. And I'm going to create a new chart here. And then line chart. And then use the year. Either way, use the date or not. But I'm going to use a year. And then y-axis. First, let's bring in the interest payment. So this is nothing new, right? Like this is what we saw in the last week. Here, I'm going to bring in the defense budget. Boom. So that's what I wanted to create. So now this trend basically it's sort of like after 2000, the defense budget increasing dramatically because of those wars. But then now it's kind of, I thought we kind of settled, but then recent years start increasing again. And then that's okay, the defense, like we need to defend the country and so on. But the problem here, especially, is interest payment is actually increasing to the level. This one is actually more than defense budget now. So we spend more money on the interest payment than the money on the defense budget. So that's kind of crazy, at least to me. But anyway, so we can visualize this one. And then from here, you can, change the chart legend position to be like up, or change the y-axis title and so on. Okay, so now we have learned that so by bringing the data from, first we went to the Wikipedia, and then instead of bringing this table from the website, which you can do, but I actually went to the source of the data and bringing the Excel file. The problem of bringing the Excel file, I had to do all those data transformation. If I scrape this data, at least we have this kind of a table format, so I didn't have to do like a converting the wide data to long data. But I wanted to show you guys, if you end up like Excel data like that, like how you can transform. Okay, so nonetheless, then bring in and then do some of the data wrangling stuff, and finally we can visualize and compare between interest payment and then defense budget, how we spending our tax dollars. Okay, that's it for this week. And then there's some promotion. So we are doing the data science booster training next month, November 13th to 17th. This is a 5 days, 10 hours training, starting from the basic of the data and data visualization and the data wrangling like we did today, and then move on to like a correlation analysis, multivariate analysis, clustering, text analysis, time series forecasting. Okay, and then so this is going to be the online, and then we also provide you the exercise so that you can reflect what you have learned and practice, and also we give you guys the support. And then so if you want to apply what you learn to your business data or organization data, and then we will support you as well. All right, that's it for this week. And if you have any question, please reach out to me at exploratory.io. And also we have the Twitter or X account called Exploratory Data. Okay, that's it for this week. Thank you for watching, and we're going to keep doing this. So I'm going to see you guys next week. Bye.